that is going to be needed. And then the other thing is a debt repayment plan needs to be put in place, not in 6 months, how are we going to pay our debt so that we can be able to borrow more, right? And then the other thing is a stronger anti-corruption drive is needed in Zimbabwe. Takura talked about it, anti-corruption. Let us see. I'm not a legal expert. Even the properties that are proceeds from corruption, so that the next person who's thinking about corruption will think twice before they do it. And then the other angle that we've never really looked at seriously is the issue of diaspora remittances. We've read it all over the show. South Africa, Botswana, UK, and the like. They bring in a lot of money into the country. Usually you find it tops $1 billion that comes into the country, which is actually more than what you're getting in terms of foreign direct investment. If there's a way of harnessing those diaspora remittances for economic growth, I believe we can be able to do it as a country. Then the other thing is we've got institutions like NASA. NASA is currently sitting on $1.3 billion. Let that money be invested in local industry. Let local industry be able to borrow from institutions like NASA that can build the economy. Not the current setup where NASA takes money, $50 million, hotel, it even cost you 50 million. It's your money, because I don't know about NASA. 50 million, they built a hotel, RTG came and rented that hotel. The hotel made serious losses, RTG it's not a white elephant, but it's yours, it's mine. It's our $50 million, and we never recovered that money. No one was arrested, no one got fired for that bad investment decision. That is us as Zimbabweans. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chief, for that presentation. I think it's a critical one on the economy. Basically, what he spoke to is the issue of debt. We also spoke to the issue of resource stewardship, pointing out that so far what we have had is a situation of poor resource stewardship. In other words, saying that the government, which has continued to be a Zambian government, is endowed with the poor resource stewardship. You know, stewardship is about maintaining resources, where they are supposed to maybe take money to buy food, they are taking money to buy luxuries. You know, for example, you cited the issue of the issue of the tender that was awarded to one fella who got lots of millions and used that money to buy luxury cars, shoes, and so on and so forth. And he's saying that instead of investing in the solar panel, solar project, nothing was put there. So he says that money would have actually been taken towards his payment of school fees and other basics. That's what he said. And then he gave recommendations: a strong anti-corruption drive, an agent plan for dealing with the debt. I think we are all aware that our debt is ballooned and is ballooning on an hourly basis by millions, even as if we contemplate on the fulfillment of election promises, our debt is ever ballooning. So he says there must be an agent plan for that. And he also raised other issues. I think we took note of those. So we thank him. And I now hand over to Patience to just do a short presentation on the state of the meeting. That is in the election period, in the pre-election period, and in the now.
Thank you very much, Ernest. Yeah, I'll make it 5 minutes or 7.
That will be good.
I remember a workshop that I attended and Tapura was facilitating at some point, and he was talking about the media, and I think it was sometime in 2015, and he was saying that we are going to expect some kind of quantitative changes in the media sector without any qualitative changes. And yeah, I didn't want to take him seriously at the time, and I just thought that he was being too pessimistic. But I think this is what we have seen, both in the pre-election period, the electoral period, you know, the whole environment around the media. We have seen a lot of quantitative increases. I think all of us have seen the new radio stations, and ZBC is not stopping. They've got 2 new ones. I think they actually opened 2 new ones this year alone. And that quantitative change is something that we are continuing to see within a framework that remains very qualitatively constrained. All of us, I think, most media practitioners have been part of advocacy initiatives for a very long time, where we have seen that the media laws that we have had since 2001 remain in place. It's something that we continue to see in Zimbabwe. It's not likely going to change. We have seen a state that continues to be the biggest player in the media sector, both as a regulator as well as a player, an owner of the media, control of the media as well. So when we're looking at the media in Zimbabwe, we're seeing a very pluralistic environment. We're seeing a lot more of media houses, of media outlets being opened, but a lot of these are within exactly the same environment we have had for the past decade, and which is unfortunate though. As in the pre-election, election period, I think within this constrained media environment, we saw what we thought was an opening up of the media, where the media practitioners were summoned by the permanent secretary. They told the world that, well, yes, we get someone once in a while and we sit around the table, but we are told that, yes, you can interview anyone, you can talk about anything, you can see, you can pretty much write about anyone in this election period. We want to show that Zimbabwe is we're in a new dispensation. We've got new things that are going to happen within the media sector. Unfortunately, this was very short-lived, and while we saw during the election period, let me just go back briefly, during the election period, what we observed, we saw that there was quite a lot more information that was coming out around the elections in a manner that we didn't see in the past. In the past, we had a lot of electioneering without really looking at some of the issues that might affect the election. I know that maybe it wasn't as much as we probably would have liked to see, but we did note that there was a lot more of election programs. You could go on Capital and be able to listen to radio rallies. You could go to the news day. There were specific election-related stories that you'd find in there. Yes, it might not have been all that we wanted, but there was quite a bit of information that was coming out, especially around the electoral period. In the past, you'd see, you probably never would have seen Nelson Chamisa on ZBC as just coverage of his rally, even if it was during the day at lunchtime when they went there, covered a rally without any interference, without any editorial comment that was coming in there. It's something we wouldn't have seen in the past. There remained those challenges where we saw the negative reporting on Nelson Chamisa specifically, and more positive around ED and the smaller political parties, where it was quite positive in terms of coverage of those people. However, as soon as the elections ended on the 30th, on the 1st, journalists started getting beaten up. I think these are stories that we covered. This is something that journalists experienced on the 1st of August, immediately after the election is done. It's pretty much as we just went back to default mode, where we saw journalists were being beaten up. No one was going to listen to you. I think there were several stories that came out where journalists you're walking home, you take out your camera, you see a soldier beating up someone, you want to take a photo, you get beaten up for that and you get detained for actually doing your job. So we have seen a bit of a regression, and those structural challenges that we have seen in the past are the same ones that are going to affect the media in the future. Where we are seeing, I think in the last month already, within a state media outlet, 3 people have been sent home already, and it's something that we have already seen. And it kind of brings us back to the early 2000s, where we saw a lot of media practitioners, especially in the state-owned media, being kicked out and being left without jobs. And beyond that, the constrained circumstances in which we see less freedom of expression, less freedom of the media to be able to go out there and really do the work that they need to be doing. So as we are faced with these purging of these state media journalists, a lot of them of who we thought were really leading the pack in terms of reporting around political and electoral issues, we are pretty much going back to the same place where we were. We're going to see, and I now begin to, I agree with Tapura, a lot more quantitative increases in the media and very little qualitative changes that are going to happen in the media sector. Of course, what is very different, I guess, in 2018 than has happened in the past has been that the growth of the internet, and this is something that we can't take away. When we're looking at the election period, you noted that a lot of the news that was coming out, yes, even if the mainstream media was going to report on something or other that was coming up, a lot of it was going to be a live broadcast. Before most of us came here, we saw the VPs being sworn in. Before we had to watch the news at 8 and wait for the news at 8 to tell us that a VP has been sworn, or the lunchtime news to tell us that the VPs have been sworn in. Already that shows us that change, where we see that the live streaming that was happening throughout the whole period showed the world in real time what was happening in Zimbabwe, and it's something that is probably going to continue. As we're going to go into the future, we are not going to see the state, I think, letting up on the ownership, on the control that it has on the media. It's probably going to be a lot more constrained. It's going to remain where we have seen it in the past. However, we have these new opportunities that have been brought about by new media, the new platforms that we have, increased investment into this sector, where we can see even the mainstream media, while they have lagged behind a little bit, are beginning to stream live as well, not waiting for tomorrow's newspaper for you to be able to see what the newsday is going to have in their headline. They're showing in real time what exactly is happening. So these are new platforms that can enhance the accessibility of information by citizens. But unfortunately, as we are going into the future, we are going to have much less diversity, enhanced state control, and we're going to see so many more new platforms that are going to be under the control of the state and the Ministry of Information. And unfortunately, this is where I think we're going to be going into the future. I don't see a lot of truly private, independent players coming on who are not linked in some way to ZANU-PF or to the government, going to start media houses as we go forward. It's unfortunate that one of the main shareholders in the media sector, stakeholders in the media sector, is very clear around who is supporting, and unless you have those links, I'm sure he has noticed that unless you've got those links with the government, you're not going to be able to broadcast or get a license in the broadcasting sector. And I think this is why we are seeing this kind of change. And this has been one of the biggest independent media players in the country, and it's unfortunate, but this is where we are going. I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Pesha. I think it basically she has painted a bleak future, pointing out that we are unlikely to have media, private media that are not linked to ZANU-PF. I don't know if ZANU-PF does not have anything good for us. I think Mutafazwa will speak to that. So she has also pointed out that what we have seen is only a quantitative improvement in terms of media, but we have not yet qualitative improvement. She actually endorsed what Takura said earlier on, and this issue stance of the media actually is against the promises that have been made. If you read the ZANU-PF manifesto, saying that they are going to create more private independent television stations and so on and so, but she is actually saying that that is actually, those are empty promises. What we are going to see are more and more of ZANU-PF propaganda machines. And as we speak, actually, we have capital people who tried to promote critical debate were fired. Ruvene is no longer at capital, we speak, and so on and so forth. So maybe those are some of the issues she is alluding to. So let me also inform you that This interaction has been made possible by the Voice of America in conjunction with the Media Center. And we are streaming live on Twitter, Facebook, and also we are on YouTube. For the Twitter, you can go to @sentinelsin, then Facebook, VOA Shona, VOA Ndebele, and VOA Live Talk. Then for YouTube is Zim Sentinel. So we also note that some people are actually contributing through those platforms. And we are going shortly to be having an interactive platform. And as we contribute, we are free to use Shona, we are also free to use Ndebele, apart from the English. And also our panelists, please feel free to use these languages because we want this debate to be in all languages. So at this point, I'm going to call upon Comrade Chafazwa to respond. Just 5 minutes. Then we go to Comrade Slopusa and then leave.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mzing, for facilitating quite a very thoughtful discussion like this one. And I'm quite very elated to be part of the discussions, of course. But according to what I see on the program here, I'm supposed to have 10 minutes. I don't know whether certainly it's supposed to be 5 minutes for reasons that must smack to rigging the panel or otherwise, but anyway, I'll try to restrict myself to what has been given to me by the facilitator, but if I happen to go over bounds, please, I expect it to be pardoned, or else I will take you to the concourse. Okay. So, firstly, let me just say, I'm an activist of ZANU-PF, yes, and a member of the Youth League Media, yes, but that is not my permanent brief in any case. I'm rather an academic permanently, but an activist when relevant. Okay. So I'm just saying those remarks because in my submissions, I'm not going to be essentially representative of the party because as an academic, I also have my own views which I feel I need to present to this panel so that the discussion can be very thoughtful, as other colleagues have said. So let me ask them to point out that, of course, before I respond to what Mr. Takura Jangaja is saying with regards to what he calls the neoliberalization policies. Yes, the debate becomes academic when you raise it that way than practical. Why am I saying so? It is quite clear that our economy has suffered so much. Perhaps I would say nearly 20 years, or perhaps 18 years to be more particular, 18 years of stagnation at the hands of the cabal that is now fallen, of course, that we all know. But we are saying in those 18 years, what is it that has been destitute in this country? Our country has been deficient of the much needed investment. Okay. There is one thing that I need to put very clear. We would want, of course, to be as indigenous as we should be, as Zimbabweans, as Africans. We need to be, of course, Afrocentric in the projection of our views, but sometimes it doesn't happen by mistake that we have to waver our ideas in order to ensure that we do what is practical. And what is practical is one that changes the livelihoods of our people. So this is the reason why, once again, I say I will not take a defensive stance because the time for doing that is completely over. I'm not a person who is trapped in the election season. That is just behind us. When it was relevant to do so, to defend the president and the party, I'm sure I did that with distinction. But what is important, at least at this juncture, soon after the court ruling and the inauguration and the reality of a president, is that we must share and rigorously debate on ideas that must take our country forward based on practicalities. Okay. So the question of Zimbabwe being open for business as a policy mantra, is for me one that should convince us to say what we need as a country is that we cannot take this country from the quagmire that it has been alone. We cannot do it alone. Okay. The era of closed villages is over. We are living in globalization. We know the challenges that come across with it, and even Nyerere once alluded to it, and he said, and let me, of course, Rania's record, but I'm sure I'll speak to the length and breadth of what he said. When he was talking about neoliberalization policies and opening up for business, especially for Western, capital, he said, it is completely a misnomer because even in boxing, in the boxing ring, you can't take a lightweight and a middleweight and a heavyweight in the same ring. Otherwise, that will simply be murder to the lightweight. Okay? What he was simply saying is that, and he went on to say, you can't put Burkina Faso and Germany in the same boxing ring because that is complete murder on Burkina Faso. It is a reality that we face, we find ourselves in as African countries, as third world countries. But certainly then we say, what is it that we need to do to our people in order to uplift themselves and to uplift them? We cannot create jobs alone. History, especially the past 18 years, has shown us that pure indigenization policies cannot take us really where we want to be as a country. So this is the reason why we are saying Zimbabwe is open for business. Okay. Why are we saying that? Because we are saying our country has faced stagnation because we could not create conducive policies to lure foreign direct investment. With foreign direct investment comes two things: jobs, foreign currency, and in fact, the third one becomes that which is a radical re-industrialization process in the country, which is what we want the most. You can't tell me that if you look around Zimbabwe, we have the capacity to create jobs for nearly 4 million or 3 million people who are unemployed in this country. It is something that we need to ask our conscience as citizens, especially after this election season, to say, are we really capable of doing that? If we look around in this house, do we see anyone who is capable of employing 15 people here? We can't. Okay. The biggest employer in this country has always remained government. That is the biggest employer. Perhaps other private companies like Econet are coming on the show. Okay. But if you go in other countries, the government actually is surpassed in terms of employment capabilities by private industry. So those who are taking out as analysis, surely we have seen what they are capable of doing and they cannot take us to what. Let us be blunt with facts. Okay. We are not the only country that is doing us. Our people are trained to South Africa and braving crocodiles along Limpopo River. To South Africa, what type of jobs are they looking for? Who is employing them there? It is not South Africans in Soweto who are employing Zimbabweans and Nigerians that are swarming in South Africa. It is white capital. So you realize then that there is a time when as a country you need that capital to come in your country so that you resuscitate your industries that have been turned into mortuaries. Okay. You resuscitate them, and when it is an opportune time like what the South Africans right now are doing, they are saying reclamation of our land is a land reform without compensation. They are following the route that we took in 2000. But perhaps we took that route when we were not really at a level where we could be fully sufficient even with sanctions. But you cannot doubt that South Africa can bust the sanctions and survive after the land reform process. And it's sparking the same reform processes in Namibia. And they can survive. Why? Because it will be costly for Anglo-Americans or dead bears to leave South Africa in order to effect sanctions that have been imposed by the United States of America or Britain. Because people watch Damar in South Africa, it doesn't mean with diamond in South Africa or gold will not pay. So dead bears will remain stuck to their interests because, like you said correctly, they want profit. So let us use them in the process that they think they are also using us. Let us be vigilant as Africans to say, there shall come a time when we feel that you have done enough. And when you have done enough, it is now time to say goodbye. And when that time comes, we take over. Okay? But I don't really suggest that we will take over in the manner that it has happened in the past. But what I'm simply saying is that these neoliberalization policies that you're talking about, they come with challenges. Even our infant industry, that is the domestic industry, may suffer because they may not be able to compete on the same footing with international companies. But the realities of having these international companies is what we need to ensure that we take these people to another level. If I am allowed to borrow from what SB Moyo said in that fateful morning. I will come to what Zagaza talked about with regards to the distribution of industries, and maybe that ZANU-PF is going to concentrate economic development on rural areas. In fact, it is something that we don't really have to ridicule, but what we simply need to envy. We can't create enclaves in our country, where you say Harare becomes the citadel of development and Zimbabwe becomes completely the opposite. It is not what we want. Even the plans of moving the government capital from Harare to Midlands is something that is completely noble. Let us decongest the service and ensure that people in the rural areas may be able to access internet, not to have growth point. If we do that, we are doing that means we are taking electricity to the rural areas where it has not been. Currently, pipe is something that one Chinotimba complained about. Repairing, but and remember the diamond that you are talking about, the gold that you are talking about, which is part of our natural resources, is found in Marange and not anywhere in the capital city of Harare. So what's wrong with targeting Marange for development? And I say that in the hope that in doing so, let's not see things within the narrow lenses of political parties. ZANU-PF is in power and therefore it is doing that for expedience. The names ZANU-PF, like MDC, those are just names like Bandom and Charoik, but they are all in the same crowd. We are all Zimbabweans. So sometimes when we are thinking or rethinking development, especially in post-electoral discourses, let us be able to derail from being captured of our political party persuasions and focus on what we really need to do to take the country forward. Those matter with we say afar. We don't know about afar. I will come to the issue of what you talked about in what you say the limited control of business. That ZANU-PF government will likely have a limited control of business because we are inviting the enemies. I'm sure President Emerson Mnangagwa has been very clear that we are going to be extra gingerly and careful when handling foreign direct investment because it must not suppress indigenous investment. So that Zimbabwe is open for business does not essentially mean we are saying those in Canberra, Washington and London are welcome, but those from our growth points are not welcome to do business in our country. I don't think we mean that, and that has been made very clear. In any case, regulations shall be there, and already regulations are there. The indigenization and economic empowerment was not repealed, it was just simply amended in order to suit the circumstances relevant. And those circumstances mean that there were specific minerals, gold, diamond, platinum. I said, I am non-negotiable because that's our cash cow as a cut. So any investor that wants to do business in those areas must come to the negotiating table on the basis of a template that is already there and the percentages that are in the act. Okay. We also have reserved sectors. The only challenge that I actually had was the requirement that reserved sectors like transportation, reserved sectors like retailing. But the only challenge we then say those who have already been in those sectors and are not Zimbabweans or indigenous people, they must be left to continue. Because the same people now are creating a monopoly in the same reserved sectors, and it's becoming difficult for a Zimbabwean indigenous person to be able to compete with them or start something competitive. So that's why I'm saying those are some of the issues that we must critique. But we critique them when we remove the jackets that normally capture us to speak as Zimbabweans. I'll talk about the thank you rallies that you are talking about. Naturally, you would expect one part to be seized with thanking people because it won, and the other one must be seized with reorganizing itself for a potential victory in the future, if it's ever going to come. But suddenly you find everyone one day will follow the winner's template to go and thank people. It's quite very unfortunate, but even in as much as ZANU-PF will do it, and President Emerson Mnangagwa was entitled to do it, to thank his people, let me say, okay, there are even more better ways of thanking people even beyond those rallies. Those rallies shall come. We'll be enthusiastic with them because we're still enjoying the fruits of victory, but certainly there are other things that we need to also do beyond thanking people. And I know them, and those are the jobs that you are talking about. It's very critical that we also prioritize on those areas. You talked about the anti-corruption issues, the issue of corruption, being a serious challenge in this country. I've always identified within my mind as an individual, and those are issues that I've even tabled before my leaders to say, this government must target three evils, triple evils of unemployment, poverty, and corruption. You address the question of employment, you have naturally dealt a heavy blow on poverty. Because if you employ Michelle, Mishek Mishek is a father. He has 2 kids or 3 kids and a wife. He has extended families. And in doing so, and you are going to uplift a lot of people from poverty. And Kanamada, it's difficult. Employer Mishek, it is paid handsomely or at least adequately. Let me use the word adequately, not handsomely. You are simply saying you are cushioning Mishek from being captured in the primitive tendencies that he used to have, is dictatorship, corruption. And so those triple evils must be addressed because they are dealing a heavy blow on our economy, and that is poverty, unemployment, and corruption. And I'm sure, and quite very happy that President Emerson Mnangagwa meets the pedigree to deal with those issues. Then I'm reminded that my time is almost elapsing. You talked about the uncertainty of tomorrow. That's for the economist. It depends from which school of thought you are convicted to. If you say tomorrow is uncertain, and you don't even know whether we are using Zima set or not, I'm sure there's one thing that President Emerson Mnangagwa was very categorical on the initial inauguration and the second inauguration after winning elections. That is going to be his own man, and his own man means creating or come up with his own specific policies that befits his vision, so that he will be properly accountable within the next 5 years. You can't expect him to use a Robert Mugabe template and then you want him to account for that. He will be his own man. If he decides to proceed with Zima set with some amendments that suits to the realities of opening for business and the radical re-engagement exercise that's happening, that's him. But certainly to say you would have expected a policy blueprint 3 days after inauguration, I think that's expecting too much. Even Jesus, by his miraculous nature, could never be Galilee and Capernaum at the same time. You'd expect the president to be inaugurated today, and then in 48 hours, there is a policy blueprint. Yet, the next day, after that policy blueprint, assuming it was announced today, you are an economist, you start to talk about that we were not consulted, there was no participation, it does not answer people's. You see, that's the kind of people that are in civil society and the economists of the 21st century. We are quite very much aware of that, but I'm not trying to be defensive, but I'm saying let's also give reality to time. Let's also be real in terms of the time frames that we impose on those that we have given the confidence to take us to another level. Yeah, finally, you talked about, I'll just paraphrase to finish earlier so that I save time for my friend. You talked about investor confidence, to say an investor will say, how can I invest in Zimbabwe? Pour in 100 million and then the next day I will be unable to pull that 100 million. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
I'm sure you're an economist and you are used to externalization. Tell me one country where an investor, notwithstanding his caliber, has been allowed to withdraw 100 million from a bank. Let's be ginger about the figures that we're talking about. It's clear that there are cash shortages in this country and we cannot run away from that. But to say that somebody must be allowed to withdraw 100 million, Mario Balotelli, who earned so much when he was playing for Man City, had to be stopped at one point in time. Police, 300,000 pounds. It was asking you to Mario, one of who was arrested because the mentality that we have, we must always be holding cash. We must do away with it because I don't think it's still relevant in the 21st century. You need your cash when it is convenient to you, but I'm sure it is not the primary thing that we should envy. In any case, this is what I have seen with the cash shortages. I have my plastic money, it's here, you steal this phone, but you don't steal my money. That's one thing that has come up with it. No journalist has talked about it. But even the cases of pickpocketing and criminal, criminally associated, in fact, criminally inspired murders around pickpocket or Milamunumar. That you can take this phone, but you can't take my 2,000 things. So those are some of the things that have come with the cash shortages. We are being trained to adapt to using